Welcome to Grandpa Hill's True Stories. This is a faith and family story about how love hurts. Because of my love and protection of my wife, I hurt her. So this is for my children, my grandchildren, and all children. It was 1995 in January, and Grandma Hill, Mary Lee, and I, and my son Brian, we were leaving Island, Pennsylvania to go to the library in Indiana, Pennsylvania to return some books. And it was raining out, and it was warm. It was January, it was warm. It was like maybe almost 60 degrees. And the snow was melting. It was just a happy day to have the snow melting away. And that's what we were doing. So we drove down the 2 miles down to Clarksburg, Pennsylvania. And then we were leaving Clarksburg, Pennsylvania. And that's when it happened. I could see some taillights out in front of me, a couple 100 yards away. And they weren't moving. So I started to slow down. And then I realized why they weren't moving. There was water on the road. There was a lot of water on the road. And the water was flowing. And I really didn't understand the area too well. There shouldn't be water on the road. I knew that there had been flash flood warnings, and I wasn't sure. I thought I was in a flash flood. And so as we proceeded forward, the car, the little blue station wagon, started to float. And in the process of floating, then I knew I was in a flood. And I knew that we were in trouble. And I knew from my training and understanding about floods that it's much better to get out of the car than to be swept away, downstream. I didn't even really understand where the stream was, because I didn't think there's any stream there. But I know there's all the snow had been melting all day, and it was lightly raining, but mostly it was just warm. It was in the evening and warm. Maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night. The library, I think, was open to 9, because it's a university town and stuff. So anyways, we're on our way to the library, and now my little blue Chevy is floating. And I tell Brian in the back seat, and I tell Grandma, and I say, listen, we're getting out. On the count of 3, open the car door and get out. And that's what I said. And Grandma started to ask questions. And I started to count.
Oh, no.
And she's, I would say that it's 1985 in January, and she's also pregnant and like 4 or 5 months along.
Yeah.
And the water's still coming in. Now it's starting to come in the door. Water's starting to come in the car. So I know I'm in the flood. I'm floating. I don't know where I'm going. Car's still on, it hasn't quit running, and it's quit moving. I'm not moving. I know I'm floating, and so on the count of 3, my car door opened, and Brian's car door opened, and Mary was still asking questions.
Oh, no.
And there was no time to talk about it. I was very worried about dying. So I reached out my arm, and I grabbed Grandma's arm, and I dragged her out of the car, over the middle of the console and the shifter, and past the steering wheel, and just pulled her. She wasn't asking any more questions. Yeah, she was upset, as you can tell by her laugh. And it hurt.
Yeah.
To be dragged. And fortunately, the baby wasn't hurt or anything like that. But then we're all out of the car, and the car's starting to sink because the doors are open. And the car just sinks, and it sinks, and it sinks. It sinks about 5 inches.
It sounded like you were going down.
No.
Under the ocean.
It's a story. You can imagine whatever you want. But that's the way I wanted you to think that, because but the fear in me was that I was going to be sinking or washing over the road and down the cliff. I had no idea what was going on. I really didn't. And then, so the car actually was wasted. It had to be scrapped because it got up high enough to get into the electronics. And so we got a new car out of it. I mean, we got a check, like $1,600 or whatever it was worth at the time. And then the next day, to finish the flood, then a man walked down the street and he stopped the flood single-handedly. Mr. Wass, a family friend, thumb in the dike. No. All this water is coming off the hillside. But it's coming off the hillside, and in Pennsylvania, they have the roads designed and banked so that there's drains. You don't see them all the time, but there's just drains along all the highways. There's drains to keep water from getting on the road like that. Well, the drain was plugged. And Mr. Wass is walking down the street. He's maybe 68 years old. It's raining out, and it's January, and he's just walking down the road with his shovel. And he gets out and he meets up with us, and he sees what we're going on, and he's going over there. He goes over to the drain, works on the drain for about 2 minutes. All that water starts going down the drain, and our car is just sitting there on the highway. We won't run anymore. It's dead. It has to be towed home. He gives us a ride. We walk back to Clarksburg, and then we get a ride home. Back to Clarksburg is like a quarter mile or something. And we did lose a few library books, because we were going to the library, and Brian very wisely didn't try to gather up the books. He just waited for me to say 3 and open his door. So I did hurt Grandma, and I did apologize, but the next day on her left arm you could see 4 long blue marks, because I had grabbed her so hard that all 4, no thumb mark underneath, but all 4 fingers left marks on her arm. So she had 4 big bruises. Yeah, but that's okay. It was It was an exciting thing. It was, but I acted out of love. I mean, I wanted to protect her, and there just, there was like, if it was important to get out, it was now that we were going to be able to all have the strength to open the doors, because it was just starting to trickle in, and then it gushed in when we opened the doors. Stood up, and when we stood up, just the water on the car maybe was 18 inches, but the water on us was like halfway up your knee or less than that. So, because we were out towards the middle of the road, deeper towards the curb. And that's my story, and about how love hurts. Thank you. Thank you too, Mary. And David.